Oh yeah, we got another registration.
Are we live or?
We are live.
Okay.
At 64
Do I
people.
look blurry to you?
A little bit. Yep.
Why is it?
I don't know.
Look at this.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll probably get started here in a minute. We still see some people joining, so just hold tight. I'm gonna go in just another minute. Give it a minute. All right. John, whenever you're ready.
Frank, good afternoon and good morning for those on the West Coast. Thank you for joining us for our webinar where we're going to discuss how to use new AI technologies to improve and accelerate your proposal development. My name is Shyam Raj. I'm a principal at AEC Advisors. For those who are unfamiliar with our organization, we provide AI systems consulting and services, primary focus on the architecture, engineering, professional services industry. Prior to joining AECadvisors.ai, I was a principal at an ENR top 150 firm where I oversaw and responsible for producing over 3,000 proposals a year. I have very in-depth knowledge of the amount of effort, time, and most importantly, money it takes for architecture and engineering firms to win work. And hopefully, after today, you will learn different techniques that AI can provide to hopefully improve your win rate, your efficiency, and most important, your bottom line. Before we start, I just want to provide a brief overview of the different services we provide. And let me share my screen real quick. So we provide a lot of companies today are having issues of like how do we implement this new technology into our workflow. AECadvisors.ai can be your resource. We assist companies on which technologies to use, and most importantly, what companies need to do to safeguard their data from outside factors and even internal factors. We provide ChatGPT training, where we do customized training on-site and virtually. We also are launching a new Microsoft Copilot training next month. So be sure to register for that. And we also do that, provide that on-site and also virtually for companies. It is now my pleasure to introduce Frank Lazar, who's a pioneer in the use of AI in the AEC space. In a previous life, Frank was the director of marketing for an environmental services firm in Atlanta, where he learned all the different techniques for producing proposals. And through his experiences, he wrote a book, How to Use AI to Effectively for AEC Marketing. You will be receiving a copy of that book after this presentation. It's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Frank Lazaro.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate that. All right, let's see here. Let's go. And we're going to swap screens here. Oh. All right. Here we go. Excellent. So this is exciting. I think when we think about AI presentations, particularly lately, what you're finding is a lot of presentations focus on kind of what AI could potentially do, the art of the possible, Not really kind of talking about how you can use it today and how you can actually go back to your desk, or even while you're working through this presentation, to really kind of focus on how you could do something with AI today immediately. And what you're going to find is in the chat, I put a link to the prompt guide. It's essentially all the prompts that we're going to be using through this training, so that you could customize them for yourself. You can, save them for you and use them going forward. But it just also shows you more of a practical way of how we want to approach this particular training when we are thinking about giving you more practical experience and more practical advice on what you could be doing to all the other stuff. Yeah, it's coming, all the predictive analytics and all the fancy stuff that people talk about. That's down the road. Today, it's really kind of focused on what we would call generative AI, and AI that is really kind of focused on creating content, particularly around your sales and marketing efforts, whether it's proposals, whether it's social media, project sheets, resumes. We're going to dive into this pretty deeply, and you'll get a chance to kind of see how this works. All right, so let's go on to the next one. So here's a quick agenda. I want to touch on base real quick on what AI is, just so that we have a context of understanding what it means for us today and how we're going to use it today. And then we're going to dive into some prompt engineering, prompt priming, and then getting into creating content where you can actually see and create your own content with using any of the generative AI tools. So what this webinar is about, this webinar is designed for you to play along. We gave you the Google Doc that you can log into and really see the different prompts. I would highly recommend you to customize them, change them to your needs, and see the results that you're going to get. It's going to be helpful if you actually have multiple screens, if you're sitting at a desk or something, and you can kind of have one window open and still watch the presentation at the same time. It's going to be super helpful. Change the prompts for you. And again, practice is kind of what we're really wanting to kind of reinforce in this training. The second thing is that what this is not about. This is not a high level presentation. This is not to get you all excited about stuff that's coming, in the sense that I can't actually show you how to use any of it. It's not about the art of the possible. It's not filled with maybes and what ifs and look at all this great future that AI is going to give us. It is really more of something practical that you can go back and you could use today. So it's a hands-on. Let's look at some of the ground rules today. We want to make sure that if you have a ChatGPT account, log into it. If you're using Copilot or Claude or Jasper, just know that everything that we're doing today really applies to those same tools. So the prompt that you put in ChatGPT is the same prompt that you would put into Copilot, the same prompt you would put into any other generative AI tool. Make sure you ask questions. Go into the oh, you can't see the chats. All right, we'll get that answered live, I believe. Let's see here. Done. Nope. Let's type an answer. I just answered that in the Q&A. So if you guys can see that, let me know in the chat. Make sure you ask questions. And then there is also the link here for those that can't get the link in the chat. There is the tiny URL that's sitting down below. It's just tinyurl.com, AE-marketing-AI will get you to the same document. So you'll see the prompt on the screen if you can't get the link. I did answer that in the Q&A. So if you're still having issues with the link in the Q&A, the URL is on the screen, and then we will open that up. Excellent. Give that one more second in case someone needs to jot that down. Perfect. All right. So what is artificial intelligence? We hear a lot about what it is and all the fancy and fun things that it can do. The reality is that artificial intelligence, at least in our context of what we're trying to accomplish here, is that there's a computer, there's a set of data, and then there's some kind of decision or content created without a lot of human intervention. So the reality is we've all been using AI, and we've heard these analogies before. If you've used spell check in Microsoft Word, that's a version of AI. If you've used Hey Google, Hey Siri, any of those words, you've used AI. The new generative AI is actually more interactive in the sense that you can ask it questions, you can do follow-ups and a variety of other things. So the reality is just the computer There is some data, and then there's a decision. So how does that work in real world? So you have some kind of question, or you need something answered or something created. You ask AI, AI does something, answers a question, there's an analysis, a decision. There's some kind of human refinement, and then there's usage. And so a real world example is, I want to create a LinkedIn article, and AI produces several paragraphs of content for you. Someone then proofreads it, edits the document, and then posts it on LinkedIn. So that's your basic workflow. Now you can interchange any of these pieces for, I need to respond to this proposal, I need copy that is need to be rewritten. AI will do something for you, then you will edit it, and then you will use it. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about content creation. There is a very, very predefined flow of question, creation, edit, and then usage. Under no circumstance do I ever recommend someone should take something directly out of AI and use it without it being read or proofread or edited, simply because it does kind of read mechanical. It does kind of read, or it's very monotone sometimes in its writing. You need to kind of put that human voice on it before it's actually used. So just keep in mind, this is our general workflow when we think about creating content. So the general AI tools, so what's available, and how do we use them, and how do we set them up, and all this other good stuff. Well, if you look at what the industry is saying, there are tons of tools that are out there for creating AI content. By far and beyond, the biggest one out there in terms of the most visited AI tools out there is obviously ChatGPT. What's kind of blended in that ChatGPT world is also Microsoft Copilot, simply because it is, and the same thing as ChatGPT. Microsoft's a huge investor. It just kind of sits out there. But what you're going to find is that while there are thousands of AI tools that are out there, only a handful of them are actually being used on a day-to-day basis to actually create any content. I will see that Bard is charts just a little old. It's simply because Google renamed Bard to Gemini. But what you're going to find is that the Google product is probably going to increase in size simply because it's Google. The ChatGPT is going to stay its size because it's ChatGPT. But just know that when you're thinking about looking at what tools to use, gravitating towards some of the bigger tools is probably not a bad idea, simply because they'll have more staying power versus having tools that are smaller. But if we look at the complete landscape of all of the AI tools, what you're going to find is that there's literally hundreds and thousands of these things now. Every day, every week, there are new tools that are being launched. The vast majority of these tools are going to go away. The vast majority of them are either going to just fail not because they're not good tools, just simply because they don't have enough users, or they're going to be bought up by some of the bigger players. And the bigger players are going to be OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Facebook. The ones that have the money are the ones that are going to kind of be there at the end of the day. The Autodesks of the world are going to be there at the end of the day. So just know that if you're kind of confused on where to start with AI, the people that are following it are kind of confused too. I tend to ignore, like early on, I go back to last February, there's probably a dozen tools that I was paying attention to. 3 months later, there were 100 tools. And 6 months later after that, so 9 months from I started tracking, literally hundreds of tools and thousands of tools. And what you're finding is that that's what this is doing right now. So just know, if you gravitate towards a product like a ChatGPT, a Microsoft Copilot, a Claude, or a Jasper, you're going to be in good company, simply because that tool is going to have some longevity. And also note that the tool that you're using today, in terms of what you're learning today, in terms of the prompts, can be applied to any one of those tools. So learning how to use ChatGPT, so to speak, now, that same prompt can be used for Copilot, can be used for Jasper, can be used for Claude, et cetera. So before we start diving into the content, just a couple other ground rules. We're going to demonstrate each tool and kind of give an example of the outputs and the differences. Again, use the Google Doc to really kind of help write your prompts, so you don't have to take notes as you go along. So we kind of give you a little bit of shortcut there. And if you do have an account, I encourage you to play along. If you don't have access to ChatGPT, you can always use Copilot. Open up a Microsoft Edge browser. It's going to be available for you there for free. If you do have a paid account, I encourage you to kind of play along there as well. So we're going to primarily focus on 4 tools today. Obviously, ChatGPT is the big beast in the room in terms of usage. You saw it on the one chart simply because it's the most well-known. It gets the most press. Just so that you know, I may refer to things as ChatGPT, but I'm kind of using that as a more of a universal term, just like a Kleenex or a Xerox. It just becomes a universal thing for a tissue. I'm using ChatGPT as a more of a universal term for any one of these generative AI tools. Another one we're going to look at is Claude.ai. This is a direct competitor to ChatGPT. If you hadn't had a chance to play with that, it's a very interesting tool. They all have different features in terms of the ability to do certain things, whether you're paying or not paying. So for example, ChatGPT, if you're on the free version, you cannot do attachments. But if you're on the free version of Claude, you can do attachments. You have to do the paid version of ChatGPT in order to do attachments. So just know that each of these tools offer slightly different features and they do slightly different things. They do produce very similar results sometimes. But I would encourage you, the one thing that I love to tell people when I give this training is use the same prompt in multiple tools and compare the results. And I think that's a good way for you to understand and compare how each of the different tools will perform to kind of meet your needs. I don't necessarily use one tool for everything. Granted, I use ChatGPT for most things, but I will use other tools like Copilot and Claude when I'm trying to compare and contrast different items. And then we're going to look at two different products from Microsoft, the Copilot, which is the free version. So if you have a Microsoft Edge browser, you can go to the search engine. It used to be Bing. I think they're renaming it the Copilot. And it's free. It's kind of built into your browser. If you're using Windows 11, there is also part of the interface of the operating system. There should be an icon that allows you to use Copilot there as well. And then the other thing that we just recently added is we're going to take a look at Microsoft Copilot Plus, which is the paid version of Copilot, which actually enables Copilot within the Microsoft 365 applications. It's not in all of them. It's in most of them. My subscription right now, I have it in Microsoft Word. I have it in PowerPoint. I have it in OneNote. It is not enabled for Excel for me. The icon is there, but it is grayed out, so I cannot click on it. So what you're seeing is that they're slow rolling it out, but we'll get a chance to kind of look at what it looks like within each of those applications. So we're going to look at these four tools primarily today. And again, remember, anything from that prompt guide that you're looking at, the same prompt can be used in all four of these tools. So just keep that in mind. We're going to touch on this a little bit later when we get into the prompt engineering piece, but the prompt is the prompt when it comes to generative AI. You're just going to have to learn how to create the prompt to get the results that you need. So just a quick snapshot. This is what ChatGPT looks like. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty straightforward, very, very clean. I have the ability, since I'm on the paid version, I can switch between ChatGPT 3.5 and 4. Essentially, 4 allows me to have attachments and use plugins. 3 is really just the prompts. There is a sidecar that when you click on this, it kind of shows you all your previous responses. So when you look at it over here, it just kind of lines up over there on the side. So it just kind of pops in and out. So you can kind of see it's a pretty basic interface. It's a little complex to use in terms of understanding how to prompt it because there's not a lot of education around it. They do have some help training, but it is kind of, you really got to have to figure out how to prompt it, and hence why you are here. The second tool we're going to look at is Copilot with Bing. And so what you're finding is that Microsoft is essentially taking Copilot and turning it into a search engine on steroids. They're really just trying to amp this up. So if you have the Microsoft Edge browser in Windows, if you go to bing.com, you'll get the generative AI piece that you'll see in the middle. And basically, you'll be able to prompt it here. What you'll notice is that you don't have the ability to add an attachment. There's one thing that you can't do with Copilot within the browser. You can actually upload a photo, but not a PDF or a Word document. So it won't analyze documents. It will analyze photos. You do have options to kind of be more creative or more precise. Essentially, what this is doing is it's telling you how fast it's going to generate the response for you. If you're being more creative, it's going to actually just kind of create it on the fly, and it's just going to be whatever you get. The more precise is it's going to take a little bit longer to process, but you're going to get a better answer. And then essentially that's what ChatGPT does. The 3.5 is kind of more of your balanced or your creative, and the 4.0 is kind of more of your precise. Also within this window, if you look up in the top corner, the top right corner, you'll see like this little ribbon, the Copilot icon. If you click on that, a sidecar is going to pop out. And what you're going to find is that the same exact thing that's in the middle of the screen is going to come out on the side of the screen. By the way, this is exactly how it operates in Word, PowerPoint, etc. So Microsoft has adopted this concept of inserting a sidecar into their application so that the AI will pop out and you can work with it within that document. So if you look at Microsoft Windows 11, there's a little icon down here at the bottom where it's the Copilot icon. When I click on it, sidecar pops out on the side, and I can basically run Microsoft Copilot within the operating system that I have. So when you think about this for a second, Microsoft's strategy is to make AI so ubiquitous, no matter where you are in their ecosystem, in their operating system, in their applications, on the web, they are going to put AI in front of you. And so it's going to be there. Everything that you have, again, more creative, balanced, more precise, gives you the same exact options. So just keep that in mind. Copilot is available in Windows 11. And again, you don't need a subscription for this. This is if you do have the operating system, you do get the free version of this. So here's a sneak peek on what it looks like Copilot Plus. Essentially, when you open up a Word document now and you have Copilot, I have an icon up at the top, which basically creates a sidecar that'll come out from the right-hand side of the screen. But there's also a little dialog box that pops up within the Word document. So this is actually pretty fascinating. So while I'm in the process of writing a document or creating a document, I could do it actually right within Microsoft Word. So I can prompt it, I can ask it questions, I can do a variety of other things. This is kind of the balance between an attachment and non-attachment type feature. In this particular instance, Copilot will, if you open up a proposal in Microsoft Word, it will actually answer questions and look at things and help you develop content for the document that is open. So in a way, it'll allow you to do an attachment, but it has to be a document that is opened up within the Microsoft Word ecosystem. So if you needed to analyze a proposal, you can essentially just open it up in Word and then analyze it using Copilot from there. The downside is that you can't add an attachment, or you can't add in more than one document. So if you're trying to analyze, say, 10 proposals to get a more inclusive response, you cannot do that like you can do in ChatGPT. So just understand that most of the time with these AI tools, there are a bunch of features, and each tool does something slightly different. So that how they handle attachments, how they read documents. So just know that if you do get the Microsoft Plus, or your firm eventually does activate the Copilot within your Microsoft license, this is the way it's going to be integrated in Microsoft Word. You think about the same thing, the same exact thing happens when you do it in PowerPoint. You click on the icon in the top menu bar, the sidecar opens from the right, and now you can start generating content for your slides. I haven't played too much with PowerPoint as I have with Word, simply because I'm using other AI generating PowerPoint tools, like the slides that we're looking at right now have been created with beautiful AI. It is one of those things to where I haven't really played with it too much. So I think what we're going to find is that this is probably going to do something similar at some point. I've heard mixed results from people in terms of the images and a variety of things that it's creating, but just know that the way it's going to operate is exactly the same way it operated in the operating system, same way it's operating in the web browser and in Word and in PowerPoint. It's going to use the concept of a sidecar, and then you're going to be able to create content within the window. So, and then we're going to wrap this up with Claude. Claude is a lot like ChatGPT. Again, free version allows you to do attachments. The prompt is the prompt. So when you enter it in, you kind of operate. But again, their interface is super basic. It kind of gives you some, hey, try this or do that. But for the most part, you're kind of on your own to kind of figure out how to generate content. So again, you just chat with it like you do ChatGPT. You can add an attachment, and you can kind of go from there. So keep that in mind. So every time I do this presentation, or I'm on a panel, or we talk about this, the one things that we kind of find out about all of the Q&A kind of revolves really around these 6 questions. Should I use proprietary information? Will others kind of see what I'm creating, like my competitors? Will someone else get the same content as me? And I'm going to answer those top 3 questions because it's all the same answer. So I think there's a little bit of misinformation around how AI operates. If you take a piece of content, your proposal or whatever it is, and you give it to the AI to rewrite it, to analyze it, to do something, the way it's designed is no one is ever going to see that proposal or that content verbatim. No one's going to get any part of that proposal that has word for word what was written in that document. Nor will any output that the AI produces will be actually replicated and given to somebody else. So regardless of what you put up there and regardless of what you create, no one person is going to get the same thing as somebody else. That's just not how it works. The challenging part is, and the risky part is that the information that you do give it, the AI uses that to teach itself how to answer future questions. So in theory, if you put up a proposal on a water resources project and you had some content in there that successfully answered the question that you asked it to produce, the AI is going to teach itself that's the way you answer the question. So that if a competitor or somebody else would come in and ask a similar question or the same question, they would get a better response than they would have before because the AI taught itself based off of your content. So will anyone ever see what you produce? No. Will anyone ever see verbatim something that you put up on the AI? No. The risk is that the AI will use that to teach itself on how to answer future questions. So you have to keep that in mind. So if you don't want the AI to kind of learn how to answer those questions for anyone else, you have to take some mitigation steps to kind of prevent that from happening. Whether that's using like a MyGPT, which is more of a private AI through ChatGPT, or using one of the other tools that don't use the data or the outputs for learning, you could do that as well. Within chat, we're also going to go over on how to configure ChatGPT to basically not use your content to train itself. And it's basically a feature that you can turn on and off in the settings. But it is one of those things to where when you think about the top row, the answer is pretty much the same. No one's ever going to see the same exact thing. They're going to probably get something very similar. And the way you can test this is open up one chat in ChatGPT, ask it a question, open up a new chat within ChatGPT and ask it the same exact question, and you're going to get a very slightly different answer. It's never going to be exactly the same. And they're designed to not produce duplicative answers. So the reality is that they won't see it verbatim, but they will teach it. If you do use it, it will teach it on how to answer questions going forward. So when you look at the bottom row, are there concerns around plagiarism, copyright? The answer to that question is that's a little bit of an unknown, right? Right now, I suspect without some kind of congressional intervention or some kind of litigation or lawsuit, we're never going to know the answer to that right now. But what you are finding is that the AI tools that are out there are now starting to take proactive steps. So for example, Claude just changed their terms of services at the top of this year in January to pretty much say that if you use our tool to generate copy or content, and you end up being sued for copyright infringement, we will protect you, meaning that they will hire lawyers and they will actually pay your settlement. So what they're finding is that the AI tools are recognizing that people have concerns around copyright and plagiarism, and they're starting to put protections in there. Not all AI tools do that right now. I anticipate that it'll become less of a concern as organizations start moving towards private AI, particularly around the fact that when you think about what Microsoft's going to do, they're going to put Copilot on top of your SharePoint, on top of your Teams, and it's going to be basically warehoused within your entity, and no one else is going to be able to see that content. So I think what's going to end up happening is that it'll eventually become less of an issue. But right now, just if you start with your own content in terms of having it rewritten and recreated, you're less likely to run into an issue if you're creating something from scratch. How factual or accurate is AI? Well, it can be inaccurate very, very easily. You just need it to, you got to pay attention to it. Hence why you need the human refinement. You need that person to read it before it's used. So anything that you ever create or anything that you create during this training, make sure it's read by a human being before it's actually used, just to verify if there's any facts in there. And then we did touch on it. Can you do attachments or images? Absolutely. Google Gemini is using DALL-E 3 for their image generation. I do know that ChatGPT is, integrating with Canva and a variety of other pieces. So yes, they are starting to gravitate to be able to create images and use images to create content. And then obviously we already have touched on it. So that was our quick overview. Spent about 25 minutes doing that. So we're going to start diving into actually how to use AI at this time. So the key thing to all of this and to getting it to work is the concept of prompt engineering. And essentially what prompt engineering is the ability to tell the AI what you want and get the results that you want out of this. And I love to use this analogy when I talk about prompting or prompt engineering. You need to treat the AI as if it was a human being. You need to talk to it as a human being. And I love to use the example of if you had an intern that was sitting on your team this summer and you went to them and said, I need you to go create a project sheet, and gave them no other context and no other information and not a lot of detail, what do you expect that project sheet to look like at the end of the day? Probably not very good. Probably wouldn't even get done. But if you sat down with that intern and said, here are all my project sheets that we've ever done. This is the project that we need to write the project sheet on. I need you to ask me questions about it. I need you to do this. And you just go through and keep continuing getting more and more context and giving more and more context. What kind of result do you think that you would get from that intern when they went to produce the project sheet? AI is exactly the same way. If you give it nothing, it's going to produce junk. If you layer your prompts and give it context and get it to ask you questions and you ask it questions and you give it content, your results are going to be dramatically better at the end of the day. I start almost every single prompt that I do with something that I've already written. Like when I'm thinking about a LinkedIn post, so it has context, and I ask it things like mimic my writing style, mimic my tone, do a variety of other things so that when it produces content at the end of the day, it's closer to what I need it to be versus it looking at it saying, well, this is garbage, I can't use that. So with that said, poor instructions equal poor results. Go back to the intern example. If you gave the intern poor instructions, you're going to get poor results. AI is exactly the same way. You need to be able to give it information so that it could actually produce better results for you. And we're going to figure that out here in a second. So prompt engineering, it's a way for us to tell ChatGPT what we want. We need to be clear and concise on what we want and specific. You need to write an effective prompt that's going to give you better results. You need to break up bigger tasks into smaller tasks. You need to kind of think about the structure of how you're asking the question to get the results that you want out. And so those that have the Google Doc, if you kind of look at those prompts, what you're finding is that they're really kind of multi-layered. And we're going to walk through some of that, but you just got to keep that in mind. At the end of the day, how you ask the question is a direct result in terms of the output that you're going to get. So some basics that I like to use: be specific, break up bigger tasks, ask the same question multiple ways. Give the GPT something to go by, something that you've already written. An example. This is an example of a project sheet. I need to create a new project sheet, and then you kind of layer it from there. And one of the things that really powerful tool that I love to use is the concept of asking questions, and that goes both ways. And there are sometimes I ask the GPT to ask me questions, and I answer those questions to get better results, or sometimes I ask it questions to get better results, or sometimes I do both. So just keep that in mind. We're going to touch on the asking questions during the prompt priming, but that's the concept of getting it, again, think of it as a person and as a conversation. You wouldn't have a one-way conversation with a human being. You don't or can't have a one-way conversation with the AI and expect to get the results that you want. So again, good prompt is going to be concise, clear, specific. Give it a persona. I love to use I always start every single prompt that I create with the concept of you are, I am. I always tell the AI who they are, and I always tell them who I am so that it creates these guardrails around. The problem with AI is that if you ask it an open-ended question, it has so much information and no context, it doesn't know where to start focusing. by giving it guardrails, and the more and more guardrails and the more and more narrow you can make that, the better the answer is going to be. So right off the bat, if I tell the AI, you are an expert social media content creator, it immediately knows that anything that we're creating at this point is going to be under the guise of creating content for social media. I'm not creating content for a movie. I'm not creating content for a book. I'm not creating content for a flyer. I'm not creating content for anything. I'm creating content for social media. I've already created or established a boundary by using the you are, I am analogy. So give it a persona. It could be a project manager. It could be an architect. It could be a water resources manager. It could be your client. It will mimic any persona that you give it. You need to give it a persona. You need to give it examples and information. The way I can produce content now, it's simply because I give it a lot of my own writing. I wrote this, and I start off with, I wrote this one paragraph. And so then it'll mimic my writing style so it knows how to write something. Because if not, it's going to come back very mechanical. I don't know why, but all of the AIs just love adjectives. They add all, and adjectives that no human being really uses on a day-to-day basis from a conversation perspective. So I always ask it to be very Spartan in its language. I need you to be professional, but use Spartan language. I don't want you to add all these filler words. And those things, again, just creating those guardrails and then mimic my writing style is a key way to kind of do that. Then you want to ask it to complete a request, and then you want to focus on format. And I think this is one of those key things that a lot of people miss. When we think about that, like, how do you want this? Is it for a PowerPoint? So you need bullets. Is it long form? I need 500 words. Is it short form? I need 100 words. So it does a great job when you start giving it a lot of context. Sometimes if you leave it open-ended, what ends up happening is that it becomes very verbose, and it'll give you 2 pages of content when you only really needed 2 paragraphs. You can ask it to rewrite it, but give it the format. So sometimes I ask it to produce content into a table. Sometimes it's bullets. Sometimes it's I even tell it the format. Like, I am producing something for PowerPoint, or I'm producing it for a flyer. I need a long form. So be very specific, and you want to kind of layer your prompts when you do that. And again, we'll get into how you structure this, but these are very things that are going to create a very good prompt for you. So here's an example. So, you are a expert social media content. Help me develop 3 LinkedIn articles. So what you're finding here is I've already created 3 different boundaries or guardrails for it. One, I told them that when I asked the GPT to be a social media content creator. So it's very narrow in terms of what they want, the role they want them to be. The next thing I did is I told them what I am writing. I'm writing 3 LinkedIn articles. Now, just so that you know, a LinkedIn article is different from a LinkedIn post. A LinkedIn article can be very long. It could, it's almost kind of like what you would think an article would be. A post is something that's maybe 100 words long. So be very specific in your language. So when you think about that, yes, you're developing LinkedIn articles, and I'm writing content for the AEC industry, AI. So what you see here in the first 2 sentences, there's a lot of context and constraints that I'm putting around the AI. I want you to be a social media expert content creator. We are creating LinkedIn articles. It's for this industry, and it's on this topic. So right now we have all the boundaries. And then the output that I'm asking it to do is I need all of the outputs to be into a table. Within that table, I need a title, hashtag, a summary of the topic, and a mid-journey prompt to create an image. So what I've asked is, so you look at the context of all of this. I've given it a role, I've given it a task, I've created boundaries, and then I'm specifying the output of what I want very specifically by saying, I need these 5 things. And so when you do that, what you're going to find is that the AI is going to perform in a much better manner in terms of producing content for you. So when you think about that, a bad prompt is generate a LinkedIn post on AI from my account. Not a very good prompt. If you kind of look at how we layer this prompt, there's at least 7 or 8 different guardrails or boundaries that I've created within this one prompt, right? It can get way more complex than this. And the more complex you make it, the better your answers are going to be. We're going to touch on this in a little bit, but it is one of those things to where, in addition to doing this, I'm going to also say, ask me 6 questions about my business that can help better answer this request. and ask about my customers, ask about this. And the AI is going to ask you questions. And then you answer those questions, and then it produces better copy for you. So there are way more layers that you can add to this, but you need to kind of think about when you're structuring your prompt. Good prompt engineering is not asking it to do a complex task in one sentence. It's taking a complex task, breaking it up into multiple different pieces, so that it's layered to the point to where you're actually able to kind of create the content that you want and content that you can use. It needs to make your job easier, faster, more efficient. It should not be a pain. And so what we want to do is that by prompt engineering it the proper way, you're going to be able to answer the questions, get your questions answered in a more appropriate manner. So when you go back and you look at what happened when we ran this prompt, you can kind of see the output. And this is a slightly different prompt, but it's similar in structure. But it gave me a table: title, hashtag, summary, and a Midjourney. So now I have the title article, I have the hashtags that they're recommending me to use. I have a summary of the article. So if I'm going to post it on, Twitter, or, well, I don't even know it's called Twitter anymore, but X or whatever it is, you have a short form version of this that you can use as a summary. And then I need to create an image for it. I can use an image generation tool to kind of create that. So you can see how the prompt goes to where the output now is in a table format in exactly the way I asked it. So now I can look at this and sit there and say, okay, rise of fractional consulting. Okay, let me think about, what do I want to write about that? Any content that I have written about that? Okay, now I can give it content about fractional consulting and say, okay, now I need something that's written from an AI perspective. Can you help me repurpose this? And I've just streamlined my workflow. So when you think about your outputs, your prompt is really going to kind of generate the results. Short, abrupt, non-concise prompt is going to produce junk. A better, more structured, layered prompt is going to produce the results that you want. So prompt cheat guide, if you want to kind of break it down from just a basic layering perspective, give it a role, give it a task, give it a goal, give it context. Context could be something you've already written, something that you can get it to ask questions. You could do so many different things within the context piece. You can continue to grow. And then constraints are is probably one of your biggest friends in this whole process. I don't know how many of us have been on this call to where you had to, you wanted to rewrite a cover letter for a proposal, or you need to increase the size of the cover letter or something, or you need a summary of the cover letter. AI does a fabulous job with taking existing content and actually changing it to something smaller. So a great example of that is more recently, I was doing a LinkedIn post and I had this Word document that was kind of stream of thought. Like, these are the AI tools I'm using. And I kind of was just going through and just typing just random things about how I use each of these tools. And it was kind of rambling in terms of the way the text was written. And it was very long, wasn't really kind of designed for LinkedIn. I took that whole thing that I wrote, just, bad grammar and all, uploaded it into ChatGPT and said, I need to take this and turn it into a LinkedIn post. You need to check for grammar, for conciseness, and clean up my language, just make sure my sentences were structured properly. And it took, 2 pages of copy and turned it into essentially about a half a page of content, which is great because I didn't have to do all that editing. It helped me with the editing. So it just took what I wrote, I put all these constraints around it, and I was able to then produce something that was actually usable. Again, granted, I had to bring it back into Word and kind of clean it up a little bit. But again, it was this light editing versus heavy editing and bringing it down even further from 2 pages into a half a page of content. So your roles can be anything: marketer, copywriter, social media manager, any technical role within your firm. Give it that personality. You are a materials testing manager. You are a surveyor. You are a principal. You are an architect. You're a senior architect. Again, context matters. You can even say it's a junior architect, a junior associate, whatever the role is, you can put that in there and it will mimic that role. Again, you got to give it context. You have to be able to tell it, but you can even tell it to be a person, particularly a famous person. Ask it to write you a song in the style of Eminem, or ask it to, respond to this question as if it was Steve Jobs, and it will answer the question in a very, very concise manner as if it was that person. So you can make this role anything that you want, project manager, associate, whatever it is. make sure you give it a role. I think it's important. Again, I think the concept of you are, I am is going to be one of those things that it's going to resonate. You're going to almost start every prompt with that same thing once you get into the habit of doing it. When you think about the task, it could be any number of things: analyze, summarize, write, develop, rephrase, whatever you want it to do. Just again, as if you're talking to a person, what do you want that individual to do? That's exactly what you would want to do here from a task perspective. Formats, again, could be a list, could be a table, could be, I need you to write several paragraphs. It's kind of open-ended, but several paragraphs it'll produce. If you need to be more specific, be more specific. I need you to write 2 paragraphs, less than 500 words, more than 500 words. It's a tweet, it's a presentation, it's an email. And what it's going to do is that that constraint is going to actually kind of limit how the content is created. It's not going to create 6 paragraphs for an email, but it may create 6 paragraphs for, say, your less than 500 words. So just keep that in mind. Constraints or formats are really important when you're creating. Again, I like to start with the you are, I am. You are an expert social media content creator. I am a project manager. Every single prompt. What you're not going to see in the prompt guide, by the way, is that some of those prompts assume that this has already been asked up front. So when you think about it, the prompt is actually much longer than it is in the guide. But I personally start every single prompt with you are, I am. And that basically sets it really does set the foundation for anything that we're creating from that point out. The second thing is we talk about the ask. I need you to rewrite this copy, and then I paste in the copy. So I have 2 paragraphs of copy. I need to rewrite it. I need you to produce it. So right now what you're seeing is I'm starting to layer. You are, I am, I need you to, and then what you're going to kind of build from there. Again, I don't like adjectives. I don't write with adjectives. That's just my personal writing style. So typically when I'm creating my prompt, the next thing that I specifically ask it to do is to use Spartan language and to keep it professional and friendly in tone. So I don't want it to go off and use a bunch of adjectives, and I don't want it to be casual speaking. I want it to be professional, but I also want it to be friendly. I don't want it to be dry or just kind of monotone. I want the language to kind of resonate with humans. So I specifically tell it, this is how I want it to be written. So you could use something similar to this, something that matches your writing style. Right. And here's the train the AI or the prompt priming piece. We're going to dive into this a little bit more later, but this is all I haven't, by the way, at this point, I haven't asked the AI to create any content. I'm just kind of building my layers within my prompt so that when we go to produce content, we're going to be in a much better place. This is probably the single most important thing that you can ask the AI to do when you're generating content. And by the way, I have company, my service products. Don't ask it all of those things because it's too many questions. Minimize them. I kind of just added those there as examples. But after I tell it to use Spartan language, the next thing I start typing is, before you start, ask me a series of questions about my company. It could be about your product, it could be about your service, it could be about you, it could be about your boss, it could be about anything. Ask the AI to ask you questions. And then tell it to help it basically answer my request. And the crazy thing that's going to happen is that once you enter the prompt and you hit enter, the AI is going to come back and it's going to ask you a series of questions. Sometimes it asks you 5 questions. Sometimes it's asked me up to 12 questions. And the fascinating thing about that is that once you answer those questions, the AI knows how to answer your request almost 200% better than it did before. So the cool part about this is that, and this is what I do, after I do this the first time, instead of having to answer these questions every single time I go to use ChatGPT or the prompt, I usually cut and paste my answers into a Word document or a Google document and I save it for later. So that when I come back to the AI on another day or do something, I don't ask it to ask me questions. I tell it that you've already asked me these questions and here are my answers. Use these answers to complete my request. So once you do it once, you can save it out and then reuse it anytime you go to create a prompt. So when you answer the questions about my company, you can answer it once, save it, and then just cut and paste it back in later by telling it, you've already asked me this question, and here's my answer. And it shortcuts basically the training or the prompt, the prompt priming of the AI. This by far is probably the single most important thing that you can do when you're prompting the AI. Yes, the structure and the constraints and everything are important up front, but to get the answers and the results that you want, getting the AI to ask you questions and then you answer those questions are going to produce phenomenally better results in terms of the output of the content that it's going to create. So keep that in mind. So to make a better prompt, recap real quick, tell the GPT what you want it to do, right? Give it context, who they are and what the content, what the audience is you're creating it for. Be specific, lots of details, like you're talking to a person. Think of the AI as a human being. And funny thing is sometimes I even thank the AI. Like I interact with it so much as if it was a person. I will thank it. Like, yeah, thank you. And it's funny, it responds back, you're welcome. It's kind of weird that I know that it's not a human on the end of that, but I interact with it in such a way that it's just training myself to remember that I need to treat it as if I was speaking to a person so that I can get the results that I want. And then you want to basically focus on format. What are you producing it for? Is it a proposal? Is it an essay? Is it a LinkedIn? Is it social media? Is it a press release? Whatever it is, you got to give it that context in that format. By doing these steps, you're really going to get to the point to where you're going to be very proficient in being able to kind of create content in a manner to where it doesn't look like it's garbage and it becomes unusable. It's going to actually start producing content that is getting you closer to being able to streamline and make yourself more efficient when it comes to content creation. So elevate your prompts, give it a personality, be very specific in its tone. I need to be professional. I need to be a famous person. Probably another important thing, probably the second most important thing you can do is, give it something that you've already written and ask it to mimic your style. I think that helps the AI understand how you write, and it'll do a good job in writing exactly like you. And then you, again, go back to earlier, the you are, I am, the task, the ask, the role, constraints, be multi-layered in your prompting, and that way you'll be thinking through how you can develop context with the AI so that you can actually create the way you want. So if you do get stuck, oddly enough, you can ask the ChatGPT to help you. I asked the ChatGPT, what's the best way to structure a prompt to get the most out of the responses? And it answered my question. It's not as detailed as what I'm presenting. I think it gives you kind of a baseline, but if you do get stuck and you're not sure that you're asking the question the right way, or you're not getting the results that you want, don't be afraid to ask the AI to kind of help you with writing your prompts. It'll do a pretty decent job with kind of helping you formulate your thinking. But again, it's going to be basic in nature, but you should be able to, if you're having trouble analyzing an attachment, ask it a better way to ask the question, and you'll be surprised that you may be able to get the answer that you're looking for. So I said this earlier, the prompt is the prompt. Doesn't matter if you're using ChatGPT, Bing, Copilot, Claude, whatever. The way we're structuring the prompts today and the way you're asking and interacting with the AI is exactly the same. The only big difference between most of these tools is the features. Attachments versus no attachments, plugins versus no plugins, the ability to browse the web, not ability to browse the web. They all have pros and cons. There is no one perfect tool. I use multiple tools. Matter of fact, in my LinkedIn post that I think I had 4 specific tools that I use on a day-to-day basis. And then there are at least 3 other tools that I continually test on a day. So I'm using roughly 7 different AI tools to generate the content and do the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. But just know when you're talking about generative AI, the prompt is the prompt. So, and if you don't believe me, take the prompt, put it in a ChatGPT, put it in a Copilot, put it in a Claude, and compare the results. It's going to produce very similar results, some more lengthy than others, but the prompt is the prompt. So just keep that in mind, that this is just not a ChatGPT training. This is really kind of more of a generative AI training, which kind of covers all of these. So we touched on this a little bit with the ask me questions before you begin creating content. That concept is the idea of prompt priming or training the AI to answer your questions. And there's a couple reasons why we do this. And mainly it's to produce better results, because we're giving it more information, that it's building enough constraints around your request that the AI knows how to answer your question appropriately. So why do we, what exactly is prompt priming? Well, prompt priming or training the AI is the ability or the task of providing content or context to the GPT before it gives you a response. What that means is that you're either uploading content you've created, you're giving it content, you're pasting content in that you've created, you're answering questions or giving it context about what you're trying to do. So you think about the prompt priming. The reason we just don't say, hey, create LinkedIn articles is because it doesn't know what it's creating. It's just going to create something random. But if you gave it all of the layers, you are, I am, here's the ask, here's the task, here's the results, this is what I've done, that is giving all the context to the GPT that it's going to give you a better response. Using a previous proposal, using something that you've written before, a resume, a project sheet, whatever that may be, is really going to give the GPT the ability to really understand what you're trying to produce and then kind of mimic that result. So that's why, that's what it is. And then why we do it again is to give it context. The more relevant information we give it up front, the better and more relevant information we're going to get on the back end. So you can input entire lengths of text. I think you could put into up to, I think, 50,000 characters, which is roughly the size of a small business book, by the way, which is around 225 pages. So you could literally paste in over 225 pages of a book and it'll respond back. Probably easier to add the attachment versus pasting a whole book in there, but you can kind of see the ability of it to kind of learn from what you're producing. So that's why we do. So how does it work? Again, we're going to go back to, and I'm shortcutting I'm not putting the whole prompt in here. This is kind of more of the brief. We've gotten past the URIM piece, but in this instance, I need to respond to an RFP section titled, insert the title, use this copy as reference and match my writing style. Here's an example of a recent copy that I've used before in response to a similar RFP, and then I pasted it in there. So what you're seeing here is that I've given it actually two different reference points when it comes to priming. One, I've given it an RFP. I've told them it's an RFP, and I've kind of given it the section of that RFP. And then I've given it reference copy, and I needed to match my style, and then I gave it the response. So what you're seeing here is, again, it is multifaceted, it is multi-layered, but this prompt priming here is really by giving it something that I've already written and telling it that this is a similar response to what I've used before. How often have we been in writing proposals when we don't want to basically lift and copy the same exact paragraph, although it's the same response, the same exact paragraph, because we want it to be unique? Well, we got to rewrite that. You could use AI to actually take that and just rewrite it for you, make it unique, and tell it, I need this to be unique, right? It needs to be exactly the same, but it needs to be unique. So in that instance, what you need to do is you could use the prompt priming by giving it something you've already written and then have it rewrite it from there. So what you see is that, again, above this prompt is the URIM pieces, and then this is really kind of more of the ask or the task piece of the response. So when you do this, this is, you're basically training the AI by giving it something that you've already given. And then what you're doing is really then turning around and having it to kind of recreate something new. So again, this is another great example. And we touched on this a little bit with the questions, but again, I'm using a ton of requests in here, but you don't have to use articles, posts, proposal content. You can narrow your scope. Matter of fact, I recommend that you narrow your scope. This is more of a representative example, but you could say, in a minute, I will ask you to write some copy for my business. This will include and insert whatever you want: LinkedIn post, press release, an email, whatever. By the way, I've used AI to kind of create call scripts and objection handling for a sales team. and it helps me do this, but it is pretty fascinating on how you can generate this stuff. But so you go back to the prompt. Before we begin, I want you to fully understand my business and customers. I'm putting context around. I don't want to answer 20 questions, and I don't think 5 questions is enough. So I'm going to tell it to ask me at least 10 questions about my business, my customers, my audience, or anything else that you need to help complete this task to the best of your ability. So you look at this prompt, you put that at the end of your prompt before you actually get it to start creating content, and you answer those 10 questions, you're going to be in a much better position to get content out of the AI that's going to be actually close to usable. If you can have something that is 80% usable and you're only spending 20% of your time editing it, is a lot better than starting with a blank page and trying to figure out how to create 100% of what you need. Again, it's efficiency play. You can't use exactly what it's going to produce right out without editing, but it does give you the ability to kind of jumpstart that. But you think about this whole prompt, it's 2 paragraphs of context before that. I haven't even asked it to start creating content. So again, if you don't want to answer 10 questions, you could say, ask me 5 questions. Or if you think there needs to be more than 10 questions, specify. You can make it anything that you want and then be able to answer those questions from there. Another way to accomplish this is through custom instruction. And this is a feature within ChatGPT. And essentially what this allows you to do is shortcut the prompt priming piece by giving this information ahead of time. Now, there are some pros and cons to this, and we're going to touch on the pros and cons in a minute. But essentially what this does is if you put in information in here, the chat will, and by the way, this is only for ChatGPT. The other GPTs don't have this feature. If you put information in here, it will use that information going forward. So if we go and look at my GPT, and I go in and customize, essentially what I've done is for my custom instructions, I'm not giving it any information about me to respond better, but on the bottom part where it says, how do you want me to respond? I want your responses to be fewer adjectives and be Spartan. Your tone should be professional yet casual. I do not have to prompt prime it anymore when it comes to that. So I don't have to put in, don't use adjectives. By default, within my settings, the GPT is automatically going to say, oh, you don't want me to use adjectives. So now, before this feature came out, I always have to tell it to use Spartan language and no adjectives. I am now able to basically tell it up front. You can put as much content and context in here as you want. You could tell it all about your business. You could tell it all about you. You could tell it about your writing style. You could do whatever you want when it comes to this thing. There are some limitations. You are limited to 1,500 characters, so there's only so much information you can put in here. And it does give you some ideas on how what you could do to kind of put that in there. But the idea is you can shortcut the prompt priming piece by basically just giving this information to the GPT beforehand. If you, again, it's underneath your little icon, it's under custom settings, and then you'll kind of see it from there. So what you'll see. But let's kind of talk about the pros and cons of it. So the pros are you don't have to retrain the AI for every chat to mimic your writing style or to do certain things. It's consistent from chat to chat. You can basically just, it'll just continue to use those settings as long as you have them activated. And then the GPT is going to continue to learn how to respond to you better and better over time. Now, the cons are, it's the same instructions for every chat. So in my instance, since I'm a consultant and I'm dealing with multiple brands and multiple clients and multiple writing styles, it doesn't benefit me to have consistent instructions for my chats, mainly because each of my clients are slightly different and they operate and they act slightly different. And even my own personal stuff, they act slightly different. So I kind of keep that piece open, and then I manually train depending on what I'm creating. Turning it on and off, you could do that. And, so if you want to, load it up, you could turn it off. You may have to re-enter in some of that information. But again, you have the ability to kind of flip it on and off in your, I believe within, go back here. Yeah. So you can enable it on and off down over here by the enabled chats back and forth. So you can enable it. And then the downside is if you use the custom instructions, you are limited to 1,500 characters in each of the boxes. So you can't put too much information in there. it's enough information, but you could probably put enough in there about your business and about you and your writing style that'll allow your chats to be a little bit more effective. You still may have to do some prompt priming in order to kind of get better context around it, but you can shortcut it again through the custom instructions feature. All right, so let's get into creating content. See it in action. All right, we're gonna do a quick polling question. See where we are here. Where is my poll? Oh, there we go. So let's do relaunch poll. All right, quick polling question. Why the poll's coming in? Let me see if I can't get that question. All right, well, that's starting to slow down just a little bit. It's a good mix between somewhat satisfied and mixed results. Not too many of you have gotten bad results or terrible results. Not as many have said that they're completely satisfied. So hopefully this training will kind of get you closer to more somewhat satisfied or completely satisfied by elevating your prompts. I think is it's a good way to kind of focus on that. So that's great. Based on the results, no one's getting terrible results. The vast majority of you are sitting in the mixed results or the somewhat satisfied. So not surprising. I think that a lot of what I find is that once people understand how to prompt and elevate their prompts through the prompt priming and asking the GPT better questions in a more structured manner, you should be able to you should see better results going forward. So that's great. Appreciate that. We'll share the results here. I think that's popping up. All right, excellent. So here we go. Perfect. Excellent. All right, so jump back here. So let's get into the RFP analysis. So I'm going to be using ChatGPT it's the code interpreter plugin. It's the paid version of ChatGPT. You can use Claude, which has the free version of the attachment piece. I pulled an RFP off of the DeKalb County, Georgia website. That's a large county here in Atlanta, in the Atlanta metro area. I've never read the RFP, to be honest with you. I've just honestly just downloaded it, which is going to be entertaining to kind of see how that goes. And we're going to upload it and kind of see what it looks like here. So I'm going to pop out here real quick. Drop that down here. And let me find ChatGPT. We're going to come here. We're going to add an attachment. So this is a land easement proposal that we have here. And so let's go to the prompt guide and find the prompt RFP analysis. There we go. We're going to use prompt number 1 for that. So in this instance, we're going to pop that in there. You are an expert proposal writer. I am a project manager, and I need to respond to the attached RFP. Attached is an RFP for a multi-year land easement acquisition services contract with 2 renewal options. Can you create an outline and a summary of this RFP? Great. So we're going to click on it. And what you're going to find is it's going to start with analyzing the RFP. It usually takes a minute or less, 30 seconds. You'll kind of see it kind of process through. And then what it's going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to essentially start giving me a summary and outline of what this is. So, because I know we've all walked into a proposal kickoff meeting and everyone in that meeting has read the proposal page to page. We know that never happens, right? So this is good. So right now, having never read the proposal before, it has given me basically an outline of how the proposal is structured. And now it is actually giving me a summary of what the proposal is. So how powerful would that be to be able to take an RFP and create a summary for it and then walk in there and have and hand somebody a one-page document that says, here's a summary of the RFP. So I took a document that I've never read before. I see the outline of the proposal. There's attachments. There's process documents. There's a bunch of stuff in here. Maybe I want to ask it, are there any key dates I need to be aware of? Okay, there's a proposal deadline. Oh, there's a pre-proposal conference. There's a questions deadline. There's an award notification date. There's a contract start date. So what you could see here, the power of the AI at this point is that I've been able to take an RFP that I haven't read. I'm able to get an outline of it. I'm able to go in and get a quick summary of what it is. I've already started asking it questions about key dates. You could see a variety of things over here. So another way that we could do this is I can come in and then ask it a question around what would be a good outline for an internal kickoff meeting to prepare my team to respond to this RFP effectively. And then come in and start creating a kickoff agenda. So what you're seeing here now is that instead of me spending an hour or 2 hours reading the RFP, writing a summary, finding key dates, developing a kickoff agenda, I can literally go through and create some of this stuff to kind of kick off. Now, how accurate this is, not 100% sure. So again, I couldn't use it right out of the AI. Obviously, I would have to bring it in and then just kind of edit it and do some gut checks and check dates and do a variety of different things. I think it's one of those things to where it is, just a powerful tool to kind of help you establish. Is this conversation up? Well, yes, it is. So it is one of those things that help you establish just a faster way to kind of prompt or develop content for yourself, right? So now I'm going to go back and I want to create another prompt and sit there and say, now write several win themes and strategies to position my firm to win this business. If needed, ask me questions to complete this request. So what you're seeing is I'm not asking it to do everything up front. I'm asking it as if I'm talking to a person. I ask it one question, it answers. I ask it another question, it answers. So in this instance, I asked it to craft win themes and strategies for my firm to respond to this land easement acquisition services proposal. It's telling me to consider the following: highlight my firm's proven track record for similar projects, stress the advantages of a local presence, showcase my firm's innovative approaches, emphasize my record of completing projects on time, sustainability, adaptability, compliance and ethics. So now, again, how many times have we all sat in meetings trying to think of, what is our win theme for a proposal? Again, this is an idea starter. It's a way for you to generate ideas quickly and get people to react to them. Can you use this 100% right out of the tool? Absolutely not. What you can do, though, is take this and then customize it towards your firm, customize it towards the project, the process, the service, or whatever it may be. But essentially what it's doing is it's making you more efficient. We have done more in the last 3 minutes with this RFP that I've never even touched before, in a way that I have a better understanding on how I need to go into the kickoff meeting. So I think that again, when you think about what you do, it's important. Now, the other thing that you can do with this, which I think is exciting, you can add another attachment. Say that you've already done a land easement proposal before. You can upload that proposal now and then ask it, say, this is a previous proposal for a land easement piece. Help me start matching different pieces of that proposal to the different requests within this document. So what you could see is that within this one chat, if you layer it properly, don't ask it super big questions, small questions up front. Go section by section and have it refer back to your proposal or proposals, because you can upload more than one. So say you have 10 land easement proposals that you've done in the past. You can basically have the GPT look at all 10 of those proposals and then start producing a more cohesive response to each of those answers within the proposal. So when you think about the RFP and people say, well, how do I use ChatGPT to do this? This is exactly how you do it. You take the RFP that you're trying to respond to, you start summarizing it. And by the way, by doing this summarization of all of this stuff, You've essentially trained the GPT within this chat on what you're trying to answer. If you start giving it your proposals and your content that you've created, here's my cover letter for another land easement proposal. Help me rewrite it to match this RFP. It's going to do that for you. So when you think about efficiencies, it's never going to replace the human being, but it's going to make you as the proposal writer or the content creator more efficient because you're going to be able to do some of these things, these idea generations. Get rid of the blank page. I think it's weird within our industry. We never want to use the same answer or same proposal, even though the projects may be similar. We always want to create something unique, new and unique, which is great. AI can help you do that a lot faster. So from here, I would be uploading proposals that I've written before, cover letters that I've done before, whatever I needed to do to continue to build upon what the analysis that has happened with the RFP. Now, you could do this with any document, whether it's this RFP, whether it's another RFP. You could do it with your own proposal responses. You can upload your own proposal and say, I need to pull out this information because I'm trying to rewrite an answer. And you can do it that way. You can also do that with resumes. You know, I know we all hate kind of scouring everyone's resume to kind of figure out, you know, who's done land easement work before so that we could put them on in the proposal. It's a lot easier just to upload everyone's resume and then ask the AI to go find all of those projects for you and then summarize it and then create a new resume for that person. So there's so many different ways that you can kind of play with this. And so, you know, looking at, again, go back to the prompt guide, there's several in here that you can kind of create. So I think that there's a fascinating way when you think about creating or responding to an RFP on how you can integrate AI into kind of helping you kind of facilitate that process going. So that's how I focus on when I do essentially RFP analysis. Those are the steps that I take. Kind of covering off some of the prompts that we used. You're an expert proposal writer. I'm a project manager. Again, you are, I am. What's my task? Well, we haven't gotten there yet because we added context. I attached the RFP, told the AI exactly what it was. A multi-year land easement acquisition services contract with a 2-year renewal. And then I gave it an ask. I need you to create an outline. You need to create a summary. You know, based on the summary, can you create bullet points and several win themes and strategies to position my firm to win the business? If needed, ask me questions. Attached is an RFP, an outline for an internal kickoff meeting, prepare the team to help respond to the RFP. So what you can see is that you can help make yourself more efficient, get that summary. It's easier to get everybody in the room to read a 1-page summary than it is to read a 100-page RFP. If they have questions, then you dig into the RFP, but at least that way you have the summary, you have everything kind of built there. And that's not something that you have to write. You can have AI kind of help you write that for you. So the proposal win themes, you can kind of go back to that piece, right? So I touched on the top one. Now write several win themes and strategies to position my firm to win this business. Ask me questions. But what if you don't have something to go by? What if you're starting from new? I love this one here. You're an architect that designs large commercial office buildings. I'm a potential client. Write me several win themes and strategies to position to win my business. If needed, ask me questions. So we go back here and we prompt that in there. What you're going to find is that I've given it context, right? It knows it's an architect. And not only an architect, it's not a residential architect, it's a commercial architect, commercial buildings. And so it's going to go through. Now I have a bunch of thought starters. Maybe my firm does lean real heavily into sustainable designs, right? We're LEED certified. Our buildings are always LEED certified. Maybe that's something that we need to kind of lean into more. Do we have content now that actually supports that? What about an innovative adaptive design spaces? Oh, we did this great project for the XYZ client. Let's go find that document. So again, it's just easy ways for you to kind of think about your win themes, easy ways to kind of think about your strategies. So that one simple prompt up front, by the way, right? So this two sentence request, created basically 10 bullet points for me around win themes and strategy. Again, can I use it straight out of the box and say, yep, this is what our win theme is? No. But what it can do is that it allows the team to have thought starters to sit there and say, oh, we did a project that did that. Let's go focus on that area. Well, health and well-being, we don't really have anything around that. How do we answer that question? Is there something that we could do around that? So again, it's just ways for you to get the team. It's easier for someone to react to a document than it is to stare at a blank page. Use AI to help you do that. And again, maybe you're not an architecture firm. Maybe you are a survey. Maybe you're water resources, or you're engineering, or whatever it is. Change it up. You are an engineer that designs, or you're an engineer that manages, or whatever it may be. Again, customize it to what you want. But again, this is just an example on how, if you wanted to create win themes and strategies, a simple 2-sentence prompt can generate 10 bullets that you can get the team to react to. It's 2 sentences that help you kind of jumpstart the creative process to then customize this content to match your firm. Now, if I really wanted to be fancy, I would go in there and I would tell it all about my architecture firm, what we do, how many people we have, the kind of clients that we've done and projects. Give it a ton more context, more specific context about me and my firm. And then the win themes and the strategies then become a little bit more customized to you. So if you went in and gave it your firm name, you went in there and told them about the kind of projects that you did, the names of the projects, what you did on those projects, examples of the project sheets, all this other stuff, and then asked it to create win themes, your results would be exponentially closer to more on par with what you want or what matches your firm than the generic response. So basically, this is a generic response for pretty much any architecture firm. But if I went in there and say, here's all my project sheets for large commercial office buildings. Here's my bio. Here's my background. Here's the number of architects that we have and the number of projects that we've worked on and how many certifications we have. And here's all the awards that we've won. You give it all that context and then say, create the win themes, and see what kind of win themes that come back on how close or not close does it match your firm. The strategies kind of match on how you approach. Why don't you tell it, hey, the strategies we've used in the past are this one, and this one, and see if it can improve upon that. So again, you can look at the prompt. This is a generic prompt for a generic architecture firm. Customize it, give it more context. When I say layer, tell it as much information as you possibly can about you, your firm, your projects, and then ask it to create the win themes. And what you're going to find is that the win themes and the strategies are going to be way more closer to what you would want to use and make them more usable. So keep that in mind. All right. So jumping through. So again, this is interesting. So this is the output that it gave me previously, right? Expertise and experience, innovative design, sustainability, collaborative, quality, competitive. If you go back and look at the response that it gave me now, sustainable green design. So similar answer, but not the same answer. Innovative adaptive spaces, innovative design. So again, asked it the same exact prompt and it's giving me a slightly different answer. Goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's never going to produce the same exact response. It's going to produce very similar responses. So if you go back and compare and contrast, I did this slide, several months ago, asked the same question when I was giving the training. This is the answer. What you're going to find here is that there's really nothing here about competitive pricing. There's some cost effectiveness. I guess that's a different way of saying competitive pricing. So interesting. So what you're going to find is that the AI, exact same prompt, same thing in the same exact training, just through a different group of people. I asked the same question and I got a slightly different answer. That's exactly how AI works. And then by the way, when I give this training again in 2 months and I go into the same example and I go to teach the attendees how to do this, and I look at that answer, it's going to be similar, but it's not going to be exactly the same. So just keep that. And that's a really, honestly, that was a fun way to kind of show that example. But what you're going to find is that similar answers, competitive pricing, just different order, different use of words, Well, you're also finding too that there's no adjectives, right? which I think is pretty fascinating because again, I tell it not to use it. So there's nothing in here that's kind of very verbose about it. So keep that in mind. So again, similar answers, same prompt, similar answers done at 2 different times. But again, go back to what I was saying earlier. This is a simplified version of that prompt. If you give it more information about who your firm is, who your architects are, the projects you worked on, and all of that stuff, these responses will be closer to what you want at the end of the day. That's gonna make you more satisfied with the results that you get. So here's another good one I like to use. This is when you're thinking about business development. You're a manager of a water and sewer system for a local city government. I am a consultant trying to win your business. What important factors are you looking for in terms of a consultant to assist in managing this for the city? That's a fascinating question. So let's go over here. We're going to prop that in here. We're going to drop that. Again, this is more of a simplified response, a prompt. I'm for the sake of time, I'm not going to spend 30 minutes on one prompt. But I encourage you and challenge you to do that. So the context I gave it is they're a water and sewer system. They manage that. They're a manager of local water resources. And it's essentially giving me up to 7 bullets, 8. All right, gave me 10 bullets. So now when I go to respond back to the pre-proposal, to the proposal, whatever it is, I now have 10 areas of focus that I can figure out where my firm is going to play the best. Are we the most expertise and experienced firm bidding for this business? If so, how do we demonstrate that? Do we provide innovative solutions, or are we just providing solutions that everyone else provides? How do we address that? Regulatory compliance, risk management. Do we have a risk management program in place that is stellar, top notch, best in class? How do we advocate that? How do we communicate that? Community engagement. Do you have a community engagement manager? If you do, give me examples. What are those things? So what you can see here is now that a simple prompt now has given me all these areas that I can now start thinking about my firm on how my firm would address any 10 of one of these things, which is going to create the foundation to how I'm going to respond to the proposal. So again, when you think about this, simple prompt gave me 10 things to think about. Now I can go back and sit there and go back to the project manager, to the engineers, to whomever, and ask the questions. Okay, I want to hone in on innovative solutions. What have we done from an innovation perspective? What are we doing here? What's our, what accolades or things that we can lean into as a firm that's going to make us stand out in this space? Flexible and adaptability. So again, using AI, again, it's never going to produce exactly what I need. It's going to produce something that I can actually use that's going to make it more easier and allow the teams to kind of react to the request. And it's going to help us kind of get more focused on how we want to answer or respond to an RFP. So again, this is more of a simple prompt. I would personally, if I was doing this myself and this was a project that I was working on, the prompt would actually probably be several paragraphs long. Yes, you are a water resources manager, local firm. I'm a consultant trying to win your business. I would ask about important factors, but I would immediately start telling the AI about who I am, what projects I work on, my expertise, what awards I've won, what's my expertise around, this aspect, that aspect. I would give it as much detail as possible. And then when it would come back to answer these questions, it would actually be closer to matching what my firm does and what I do at the end of the day versus it getting more of a generic answer. Excellent. All right. All right. Here's another one. I love using this one. How many of us have gotten a request for a project sheet, and then you turn around and the engineer or the project manager gives you like one paragraph of copy, which is that's not a project sheet. So come over here. We're going to come over here. We're going to paste this in here. you're a copywriter and I'm a project manager from an AEC firm. Rewrite this project sheet to make it 500 words long or write 4 paragraphs. To complete this task, bring in other industry facts and other details related to engineering services. We're going to do that. And then, by the way, this is an actual paragraph of copy that I got from a project manager. Here's the copy. And it literally is only 1 paragraph. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I need to create a 1-pager, and you've literally have given me 1 paragraph of copy. So essentially what I've done is I've given it the prompts, matter of fact, so that you can see it. We're going to break that up a little bit, right? You are, I am, I'm a copywriter. You're a copywriter, I'm a project manager. Gave it context that I'm an AEC firm. It's a project sheet. Matter of fact, I don't want it 500 words. We're going to come in here. We're going to make it 250 words. And we're going to make it, we're going to get rid of that, right? 250 long, complete this task, bring in other industry facts. And by the way, this project was a building demolition near the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. They were basically blowing up a Sheridan Airport hotel. And, you know, this is literally, it's a very fascinating project. A lot of people working on it. And literally the project manager gave me 1 paragraph. I didn't really know what to do with it. But using AI, I can come in and take that 1 paragraph and basically have it rewrite this. And what's really fascinating about this is, since I'm using ChatGPT 4, it is also looking at the internet, and so there was a lot of news articles about it. So they were able to go out to the internet right now and pull in other information about that project. So essentially what we did was we took 1 paragraph of poorly written copy from an engineer about the project and turned it into 3 paragraphs that is actually kind of useful. Now, I'm probably going to take this, copy it into Word, and then wordsmith it, but I was able to take 1 paragraph, turn it into 3 paragraphs, right? So we went from the AE firm led the environmental and civil design scope for demolition and design of a 19-acre project, Sheridan Hotel, City of Atlanta, $9 million project, engineering record. And essentially what it did was it took it and turned it into something that was actually quite usable. So for the folks that are on this training that deal with project managers and engineers, and you always ask for project sheets or project write-ups, and they give you a paragraph or less, 2 sentences, you can use AI to augment. Again, I would need to take it, bring it into my editing program, Microsoft Word, and to kind of proofread it, fact check it, make sure that, you know, was it a $9 million initiative? Yes, it was. You know, by the way, I gave it that, but you go in and fact check some of the data. And what you're going to find is that you're going to end up with the ability to take something and really expand upon it. Now, if I wanted to kind of rewrite this and make it longer form, I can change it from 250 words to 500 words. I can turn it into 150 words. So you can see the context that you can build around it, and you can make it as long or as short as you need it to be. So taking the single paragraph and turning it into 3 paragraphs is a pretty powerful ability when you think about an editing and copywriting capability on how fast you can do that so that you can actually continue to do more work, right? How long would it have taken you to research and rewrite that 1 paragraph into three paragraphs? 30 minutes? An hour? I don't know. But what did we do? We took that 1 paragraph and rewrote it in roughly about 45 to 60 seconds. So you can see the power of AI on how you can use it. Again, you are, I am, I'm giving it a specific task. I'm asking it to bring in other facts. I'm asking it to do a variety of different things. So there are a bunch of things that I can do with this to kind of expand upon the content. And then it kind of produced what I needed it to. And then essentially what I'll do is over here, I'll copy it, I'll bring it into Word, I'll edit it, and then I'll make it usable. So that's how we rewrite copy. And you could do that with anything. If you have existing copy from a proposal, you can take it and do the same exact thing. You're a copywriter. I need you to rewrite this. I need you to use the same content, but make it unique. So there's a variety of ways that you can do that when you're thinking about rewriting your copy. So when you're thinking about doing your proposals, you think about FS330s and it's a lot of cut and paste and you're reusing a lot of the same content, but you don't want to reuse the same content. You can use AI to kind of make it unique, keep it the same length and change it without actually going through and having to rewrite it yourself. Same thing with proposals, same thing with project sheets. Any of those things, you could take existing copy that you have today, use AI essentially to kind of rewrite it. You can then turn around and go and say, hey, I can go over here and I need it to be longer, I need it to be shorter, I need it to be whatever I need it to be. So use AI as your own personal editor. And it's a beautiful way to kind of create new content from existing content and make you more efficient on a day-to-day basis. So again, this goes back to what we said. We took the URIM, I took the existing copy that was created, and we all saw the output. So here's a great example. So we go back to what we did earlier. I did that same exact prompt, and this was 2 months ago, and it created 4 paragraphs versus creating 3 paragraphs. So what you're finding is, again, this is just another example of how it's never going to produce the same exact result. I gave it the same exact paragraph. Rewrite this paragraph. Same exact paragraph, same exact request. 2 months ago, it produced 4 paragraphs of copy for me. 2 minutes ago, it created 3 paragraphs. So it's never going to produce the same exact thing. It's going to produce something similar, but just never exactly the same exact thing. But again, rewriting copy, using AI to rewrite copy is probably one of the more powerful tools within the GPT world, whether it's Claude, GPT, ChatGPT, or Copilot. So copy generation, we kind of touched on this, right? So we can, your water resources manager, you work from a government agency, I'm a consultant, so again, you can create copy. Again, I would give it context about your business simply because I think it's a little bit easier for it to work off of something that you've already created. So again, go back to what we said earlier, right? It kind of shows this gave us 5 answers. What was the one that we did for the water resources? This gave us 10, right? So you could see the difference between there's 10 and this one gave me 5. So there's just ways for you to kind of look at that. You could build case studies. So again, you're a copywriter. I need to build a case study using fractional consulting for an AEC firm. Thought starter, right? Again, it probably needs a lot more context. You probably need to feed it a lot more information. I think it's important you to train the AI with stuff that you've already created. You're going to get better results at the end of the day. So I want to touch on, we go back to the concept of proprietary information. It's one of those things to where you could see that that people are concerned about using proprietary information. So you can build if you have the ChatGPT Plus or the Pro, whatever the 4 version is, you can create a custom GPT. And that essentially what it does is it gives you the ability to use ChatGPT, but only you could see it and only you get to use it. So anything that you upload to it, anything that you use at that point, it's something that from your perspective, no one else is going to be able to see it. So if you don't want anyone, if you're worried about your proposals being up there, you can create a custom GPT. And essentially what that does is that it just basically keeps it to you. Now you can publish it and make it public, or you can just keep it to yourself. That's really kind of up to you, but it's just simple ways to do that. So the way we get there is underneath here, you'll see on the paid version, you'll see this thing called My GPT. When you click on that, what it'll do is it'll give you the ability you'll see this little window come open. And essentially what we'll do underneath here is when you go to edit it, you can upload documents and you can give it context all around what you're trying to do. So if you wanted to upload all your proposals, you wanted to do something around resumes, you could do that. And essentially what that's going to allow you to do is to basically create a GPT, a chat GPT just for you, that it's going to allow you to ask questions against your proposals, ask questions against your resume. And the way you prevent it from being seen by anyone else is you basically publish it to only you. or you publish a link to basically to you and your team. What that does is it prevents anyone else from seeing that content. So the MyGPT will use your attachments, but will not use it to train the underlying model. So there's ways for you to kind of use it if you're interested in using more confidential or proprietary information and you're concerned about it. You can create your own GPT to kind of do that as well. So hold on here. Some hand raised up there. So that's one way to kind of, when you think about your, proprietary information, creating a custom GPT is really one way to kind of solve that. And the other thing too is that by uploading all your resumes or all your proposals into MyGPT, you don't have to do that every single time you're trying to analyze an RFP. So I think that's again, goes back to the concept of it being repeatable. You don't have to keep retraining it. The MyGPT will continue to basically exist and then train itself. Again, kind of going back, you basically create a GPT. You can go in there and start basically configuring it. You can actually start testing it before you publish it. There's a variety of ways that you can do that. As I said earlier, you want to give it a name, a description. Basically, underneath instructions, you basically want to give it a paragraph of copy on what you want it to do and what you don't want it to do. Again, you're training the AI to do that. What you want it to do, I want you to look at all of my knowledge files down over here. That's the uploaded files, which are my proposals, and help me produce new answers to the data that's already there. I want you to avoid doing this. And so that's what you would do in that space. And then if you want to have some sample starter questions, you can put those here. You would want to upload all your proposals here. And then you can turn things on and off, right? So you don't want it to browse the web when it's responding, turn that off. You don't want to generate images, you turn that off. You can create your own specific action if you want. So there's a variety of things that you could do to customize. Pretty powerful tool. It's something new that came out in the last couple months. I've created an FS3 form builder one that's basically built off of the same exact thing, but you could build this for pretty much anything. Resumes, proposals, cover letters, whatever you want. And then you want to come back and you sit there and say how you want to publish it. If you don't want your data to be seen by anyone else, publish it only to you. If you're operating in a team and everyone has a ChatGPT link, you can actually just publish it to the people that have the link, and it just allows to do that. I wouldn't recommend publishing it public if you don't want people to see it. So coming to about less than 15 minutes or so before we wrap up, just want to kind of give you guys just a quick wrap up. I'm hoping that you guys have you've seen the power of the concept of prompt engineering and understanding that you need to get more proficient on how you ask the GPT to produce the results that you want out of it. I've given you the prompt guide that should help you do that. You all get a digital copy of the book, at the end of this session. And then, obviously between Shama and myself, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to kind of answer questions as it is, or if your firm is looking for something more in-depth training or something a little bit more robust, specifically designed for your firm, do not hesitate to kind of reach out. So with that, again, just want to, we're going to go through the Q&A and try to answer some of the questions. It looked like there was a bunch in there. We'll do that. You'll get a free copy of the book. It'll be available via the email download, and that'll be there. I am speaking at several events. For those that are on the West Coast, I will be at the SMPS PRC conference, the Pacific Regional Conference, speaking on this specific topic in March. And then there's a variety of events with ACEC and some other SMPS chapters throughout the year. So we'll kind of keep that in mind, and we'll let everyone know what's going on there. So with that, here's our contact information, and let's kind of look at the questions here. All right, let's see what we got here. I'm going to scroll back up. Shama, have you been answering some of these questions, hopefully?
Yes, I
where do we
have,
see
right.
Microsoft Copilot going? Many of us use Microsoft-based firms. Can we do now with Copilot and set us up for the future of Copilot? So good news is um, at the beginning of this year, Microsoft opened up Copilot Plus for everyone. So anyone that has a Microsoft Office 365 license, doesn't even matter what kind of license. Previously, you needed an enterprise license. They removed that restriction. So it's for any size firm. As long as you have a Microsoft 365 license, you can actually do this add-on. For $20 per person, you can add Microsoft Copilot, which would basically open up Copilot in Word, PowerPoint, etc. So basically, to get you ready for Copilot, honestly, you're doing what you're doing right now. Learning just so that you know, Copilot is actually built on the same technology as ChatGPT. It operates in exactly the same manner. The only difference is ChatGPT is a standalone application that has some features that Microsoft Copilot doesn't have, but Copilot integrates into Outlook, OneNote, all that other stuff. So learning how to use the prompting, the prompt engineering, the prompt priming is going to kind of get you prepared to use Copilot for the future. Being able to capture a transcript from a Teams call, load it into OneNote, have AI write you a summary of that is going to be a pretty powerful tool. So what you're doing today, learning how to use ChatGPT or a GPT, is going to really kind of get you prepared to use Copilot going into the future. The only big difference is where the tool lives. ChatGPT lives in a web browser. Copilot's actually going to live within your Microsoft application. Honestly, at the end of the day, Microsoft's probably going to win this game, just like they won the browser wars, simply because by turning it on in everything that they have, and to be honest with you, almost every single one of us use a Microsoft application every single day. It's just going to be there. So at the end of the day, why go get ChatGPT when I have Copilot? Because it's already on my computer. Microsoft's probably going to end up winning this at the end of the day, in my opinion. So just continue to learn the generative pieces, learn how to do the prompt priming, how to ask it questions, how to interact with it. And as it becomes more and more integrated in everything that you do, you'll be way more prepared to use Copilot once it becomes more ubiquitous in everything that it uses. So that was that one question. Another question is do all of these tools pull from the same data pool? Yes and no. Some of them, the underlying large language model, some of these tools actually are all pulling from the same model. But the learning and how they learn, they're building their own data set. So any one of us could go out there and build our own version of ChatGPT and license the ChatGPT LLM model on the back end. Yeah, so the underlying piece is more likely than not similar across a lot of these. I know for a fact Microsoft and ChatGPT is, because Microsoft invested $10 billion in OpenAI, so they're definitely using the underlying model and data. I don't know what Claude is using on the back end. Google has their own, so the Google Gemini, they have their own, and it's kind of building off of there. So in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Where it does get familiar is that they're all scraping the internet, so they're all scraping the same data. So that's where they're probably going to be similar, in the sense that when they're pulling, more basic information, more current information off of the internet, it's probably going to be very similar. The underlying language model on how it's training itself is probably the unique part, depending on the tool that you're using. Again, OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Microsoft, they're all sitting in the same table in terms of their data. I know for a fact Google has their own. I know that for a fact Facebook has their own. So they're, those underlying models are probably slightly different. But from an internet perspective, they're probably all using the same thing. Would love tips on the best way to train the ChatGPT to learn the company's language style. The best way to do that is actually give it stuff that you've already written. So if you have press releases, tell it to look at your website. So content that's already created, that already has your voice and your tone around it, feed it. feed it public information, press releases, things that you've put into the public domain, have it look at your website, do those things, and it'll get better at training the GPT to kind of understand your company. How do you use AI to pull from your own internal information text that you've already created? You can upload it. The best way is to kind of upload it. It's the fastest way. Other ways you can cut, if it's shorter content, cut and pasting it in, telling it, say, this is something that I've already written before. Here is the copy, colon, and then paste in the copy is one way to kind of get it in there. If it's already in an attachment, give it the attachment. If you have the ability to do attachments, would be the fastest way. You don't have to cut and paste. But yeah, most of the time I'm either cut and pasting in stuff that I've written, or I'm using the attachment feature to kind of get it in there as fast as possible. Is there a way to use one of these generative AI tools to search your firm's existing database of proposals? Yeah, I think Sham kind of touched on that. Build a custom GPT through the MyGPT is one. I will say probably in the near future, and this goes back to the Microsoft Copilot piece, I do not put it past Microsoft to actually put Copilot on top of SharePoint or Teams. At some point, it's just going to be inherent to everything that you do with Copilot. So if you're storing your stuff in SharePoint or storing yourself in Teams, I will bet the farm that Microsoft is eventually going to put Copilot on top of that, and it's going to allow you to search your existing documents. And again, it goes back to why I think that Microsoft's going to end up winning this thing, simply because if all of our data is in Teams, isn't in SharePoint, and I don't have to worry about putting it into another database or exporting it or migrating it or doing something, path of least resistance. Microsoft will end up winning that at the end of the day just by turning it on. So right now, there's no way to do that. Right now, the only way to kind of do that is to build a custom MyGPT to have it search that separately, and then kind of go from there. Is probably your best way. There's other tools out there. Joust.ai is a proposal response tool, AI proposal response tool. You can feed it all of your proposals, and again, but it is a separate system, so you're going to have to get everything out of where it is today and kind of upload it to where it needs to be tomorrow. Are there any tools you choose for AI as a list of sources to use? Yeah, there's a couple out there that you could do from an accuracy perspective. ChatGPT has actually gotten a lot better in terms of its accuracy, but there are tools out there called Quillbot and a bunch of others that will actually gut check your data for us. There's several plagiarism tools, mostly targeted towards the educational space, but do work for business. So, if you're writing a PhD paper, you can check for plagiarism. But what it'll do is it'll also look at business documents as well, although they're kind of marketed and geared towards the educational space. I can pull a list together and we can send it out on the follow-up email to everyone. How to build a custom GPT. Again, you need the paid version of ChatGPT that will give you the ability to do that. And then from there, you can actually kind of just build it from your settings. Custom GPT, top database. All right, I'll skip that one. Is there tools that can help with image detection? Yes. Microsoft Copilot does image detection. If you go to, and they don't have the ability to upload an attachment, but they do have the ability to upload an image. Now, from an image detection perspective, I don't know what you're trying to detect. Right now, it's really designed to kind of detect objects. I uploaded a picture of my dog the other day, and it came back and gave me a whole bunch of information about the breed. It correctly identified the breed and some other information about it. If you're looking at it from, you're trying to detect aerial imaging, architectural documents, not exactly sure it will do with that. I haven't tested that, but that's probably something that you can kind of test on your own. We got about 6 more minutes. When using ChatGPT, do you usually start a new chat each time social media? So personally, I do not. When I create my own social media, I actually use the same chat window. And the reason I do that is that everything that it creates, I type above that, the AI uses to kind of inform itself on any new content creation. So when I go to create my content calendars for social media, or the content that I want to create for social media, I'm always using the same chat because I'm always talking about the same topic, and I don't want it to repeat anything. So it uses everything above it that it's already created. So for social media, I'm using the same chat. For proposals or other content generation, I'm actually using separate chat windows for those things, to kind of simply to keep them isolated, which I think is interesting. ChatGPT is also coming out with a new feature that allows you to reference previous chats that you've done, so that you could create, like, you could start a new chat, but I wanted to reference a chat that I've done previously. That's a feature I heard is coming out recently. I saw examples of it. It's not available for me yet, so I haven't seen it, but you should be able to do that. But for social media, I'm using the same chat window. I just kind of keep bringing it back up, and then we kind of go from there. All right. Organization, HR, engineering departments require their own custom GPTs. Yes, every department would need it. Good. Sham answered that one. I don't know if it could detect the person's face across a database of photos. I'm assuming that Copilot can, since it does image detection and it does recognize people. I am also assuming that Google Gemini does, because if anyone uses Google Photos, it will automatically group, if it recognizes photos, Google Photos will automatically group photos of the same people. So it'll take all the pictures of my kids, and it'll recognize the difference between the two boys, and actually create a folder for one for Evan, one for Hayden. But it's there. I haven't tested it, but yeah, I would look at Google Photos for that feature, and then I would also look at Google Gemini, which is basically probably going to be built into Google Photos anyway. How sensitive is it to simple spelling errors? It's sensitive. I mean, the better you can write it, the better off it's going to respond. Again, it's like a human being, right? It could probably figure out what you're trying to spell or type, but you're probably better off making sure that you give it that information. Yes, you can train the GPT for particular clients. That's an easy one. Can the AI fill out a 340 form based on a resume? Yeah, we are actually working on the GPT to actually do that. And then yes, the QA will be available to that. And then, does the AI have the ability to generate any graphics? Yes. Sham's kind of touched on this. Adobe Firefly, Midjourney, DALL-E 3, Gemini, and Copilot all can generate images. And if you use Canva, you can, and you're using ChatGPT Plus, you can actually use the Canva plugin and actually generate like email templates and a variety of other things. So I think there's a variety of pieces there. So with that, I think we've answered all the questions in the GPT. Just to kind of wrap this up so that people know, yes, a recording of this will be shared with everyone. Everyone will get a link to download a copy of the book. And then the QA will be actually part of the recording. So give us a day or so before we're able to kind of wrap this up. It will take Zoom several hours to process a 2-hour webinar. So the recording will probably be available, more likely than not, end of this week, probably late Friday. So with that, we're hitting the top of the hour. We appreciate you all attending this. Again, an email with all the follow-ups, the Q&A, and the recording, copy of the book will be forthcoming. And again, if you have any questions, our contact information is on the screen. Feel free to reach out to us or connect with us on LinkedIn. And we look forward to seeing you at some future trainings. We have one coming up in March that's going to be specific to Microsoft Copilot. And then we'll be doing this training again, probably again later in the year, most likely May or June. So again, we appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you at future events. Thanks, everyone.